This is an attempt to make pretty much a tutorial video for players who are completely new to Ultima Online. So once you open the game, you log into your account, you select the server, you start creating a new character. You'll arrive to this screen, in which you can customize your character with a bunch of different options. You enter the character name you want. And then you click on this little green arrow. Now you'll arrive to this screen where you have a few choices, and the first thing to note is that nothing you choose here is permanent. This is not a very significant selection, though can save you a tiny bit of time at the very beginning. So in my case, I'm just going to choose advanced, and we arrive to this screen. Now here we can see a few different things. For example, your strength, your intelligence, and your dexterity. Strength governs your HP and your carry weight, both of which are extremely important, and you're pretty much always going to want to have this at 100, no matter what kind of character you play. Intelligence governs your mana, which is the resource you use for casting spells, and dexterity governs your attack speed, your bandaging speed, and also your stamina. Now here you can select and slide, whatever. Here, if you click, you will now arrive to a list of a ton of different skills, of which you can choose 3 on the screen, and also assign how much of each skill you want. So for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to choose, for example, Magery, let's say healing, and let's say Musicianship. And then I'm just gonna click next. Again, this is all changeable pretty much whenever you want. So if you arrive to a screen that lets you choose where you want to start off, I'm playing on the Outlands server right now, so I'm not sure if I can choose any other option, but if you can, I would definitely advise you stick to Shelter Island. So I'm gonna click next, and I arrive to this screen. Now, in this case, apparently my name was already taken, so I've got this little gump asking me to rename my character. So I'll do so real quick, confirm new name, and there we go. Now depending on your resolution, you might have a tiny screen or a huge screen, whatever. You can actually, at the bottom right of the play window, you can actually click on this little blue circle, click and drag, and you can resize your screen however you want. So in this case, I'm just going to resize it something like this, and so on. Now, if for whatever reason your resolution made it so that your screen was extremely zoomed in or zoomed out, you could actually press Alt-O to open the options, or on that screen that you initially had open, you could click on Options here to get to the same screen. From here you can go to video and change the play window size, and you can also change the zoom. So for example, if I were to lower the zoom, it would actually zoom in, and if I were to raise the zoom, suddenly I'm in outer space. So yeah. So first things first is how to move. So you just right click and you hold down right click and you aim where you want to move. Next thing would be your Paperdoll, which is a pretty significant thing. You can double click your character and you'll get the screen again. Alternatively, you can press Alt P to open it, or in the very top you can see this menu here. If you don't see it, you might see a little red arrow here. You can just click it to expand this menu, and here you have Paperdoll. Another thing is, the menu you get here is not identical to the menu you get here. So definitely take a look at both of those. And then we arrive to the map. You can open the map. This is the default game map by pressing Alt-R, and you can resize it between small and medium by pressing Alt-R again. And you can close it by right click. Much better choice though would be in this menu, choosing world map. And here you get this view, which you can zoom in with your mouse wheel. And now suddenly I'm getting icons and text like Shelter Island Bank, Shelter Island Moongate, Cave Tunnel, etc, etc. I would definitely recommend using this map since there's a lot more details on it. So opening up my Paperdoll again, in order to access my inventory, I'm going to either want to press Alt-I or just double click on this backpack you have on your Paperdoll. Now in my inventory, I can, I can click on an item once to, see what item it is. I can click and drag it to move it around. I can drop it inside a bag, and then I can open the bag by double clicking it, and then I can move items around. I can drop it here on the floor, and if I want to pick something up from the floor or move it around, just click and drag, or click and drag it on yourself or on your backpack, and there you'll have it, or just directly on any empty space in your bag. Now let's say, for example, if you're moving an item that is multiple items stacked up, like here, these are actually 5 potions. If I were to grab one of these, I'd no longer get that little gump, but because these are multiple items, I do get that option. If I wanted to move all of them together, I could just shift click and drag, and now it just moves the entire stack. So just a little bit of convenience. If I wanted to use an item, I would double click on it, and some items require them to be targeted, like these bandages, and so I would just target something like myself. Otherwise, if it's not targeted, I'd just double click it once and it would consume the item. Now in this game, when you die, you actually drop everything in your inventory on your corpse. And that means that in order to get your stuff back, you have to actually go to your corpse and pick all your items back up. The issue is that other players can also loot your corpse. So, that's why death has a lot of risk and danger in this game. As soon as you res, you'll likely have nothing on you, and so you'll have to get your stuff back. With that in mind, there are certain items that when you click them, they actually say blessed. And blessed means that when you die, these will actually spawn on your inventory with you. Same thing as stuff that is, Newbied. You see this broadsword says Newbied on it. It's essentially the same thing as saying it's blessed. Now, another way to keep your items safe is if you go up to bank, and you can see on the map here it says Shelter Island Bank. But otherwise, if I'm at a town, I can also identify it by this signpost with the little gold stacks on it. If you left click it, you can also see it says bank. If I go up pretty close to this building and I actually type in bank and press enter, it'll actually open a box. Now this box, I can drag stuff inside, and this will be protected. No one can ever reach this, nothing will drop from here when I die. It's a fully secure box. It's not shared amongst your other characters on the account, it's individual to your character. In this case I don't want to store the cheese, so I'll just bring it back. But yeah, bank is your friend. Now, an essential thing to UO is how you build your character. And to build your character, basically you have skills, which you can reach in your Paperdoll by pressing the skills button, and suddenly you get this menu. Now, if you click on these little categories to expand them, you'll see all the different skills that were available to you when you created your character. Now, skills in this game go up by using them, right? So some of them gain passively, like, for example, if I want to gain wrestling, I'll just go attack something with my bare fists, or if I want to gain swordsmanship, I'll just equip a sword and go attacking something, and that might gain other skills passively as well, like tactics and anatomy. That said, skills can only go up so much, right? The skill cap is generally 100, though at least on this server there's ways to bring that up to 120. At the same time, you can't bring everything up to 100 or 120. There's a total skill cap, which is 700 points, which is also raisable up to 720 on this server. So let's say, for example, I have 7 skills at 100 skill. I won't be able to gain any other skills anymore because I've reached my cap. So in order to make space or make changes, I could actually click on this little arrow next to the skills to mark one that does have some skills. Like, let's say I don't want healing anymore, which I have 50 points in right now. I can mark this arrow downwards, and as soon as I try to gain a skill, whenever that skill would gain, it will also lower healing at the same time. So if I gain 1 point in taste ID, it will lower healing by 1 point. At the same time, I can also lock the skill by clicking it again, and I'll get this little lock icon, and that means it will no longer go up or down. It'll just stay exactly where it's at. The same is actually true with your attributes. If you click and drag on yourself or on anyone, you can actually bring out their HP bars. So if I bring out my HP bar and I double click on it, I actually get this screen, the status screen, which shows me my attributes, my HP, my stamina, mana, the number of tamed animals I have following me, my weight, my armor, my damage, my food buff, and how much gold I'm carrying, etc, etc. I can even click on this little buff icon to see what buffs I have active on me. In this case I just ate, so I have some food satisfaction, and I can see the duration here. So the same thing is true with attributes, that there's a cap on attributes of 225, at least on this server. And so let's say I've gone up to 100 strength, 100 dex, and then I realize that I actually don't want 100 dex. I'd prefer to have more intelligence. I can just mark this arrow downwards on dex, and as I gain intelligence, my dex will go down correspondingly. For that matter, I can also lock it to keep it in place to make sure I don't go above or below that certain number. Let's see what else. One thing I didn't mention with the inventories is that with any screen or inventory or whatever that you want to close, you can just right click on it to get rid of it. You can also minimize at least your inventory into these little icons. But yeah, if you want to get rid of something, just right click it. So let's see what else. So in terms of skills, as I mentioned, some skills gain passively, but other skills are gained actively. So let's say arms lore, for example. If I want to use arms lore, I'm going to have to actually click on this little blue icon next to it, which indicates that it's an active skill. And then it's going to bring up a targeting menu. Not all skills will bring up at a targeting menu, but this one does. And so then I'll target an item, and unfortunately I marked this one to go down, so I actually want to show this real quick. If I were to click this and then click on an item, you can see that my skill just went up by 0.2, right? And so if I want to keep gaining on it, I just keep on doing it, right? Some skills will have a cooldown, you know, maybe up to 10 seconds or maybe a lot less. And that's how you gain skills. You just do that skill a lot. However, you can also actually train skills up to 50 skill with NPCs. So let's say I wanted to train begging or fishing. Well, I'd find an NPC that's, you know, kind of related to that skill, and I would go up to him, and then I'd click on him once, and I'd get this context menu. And, you know, in some cases they're vendors as well, so I'd be able to buy, but more importantly I can see that I can train from him. So in this case I wanted begging, so I'd click on begging, and now he gives me a message. I will teach thee all I know, if paid the amount in full. The price is 500, for less I shall teach thee less. So in this case what you do is that you would grab gold in your inventory, and let's say you wanted the full 50 points, so I'd select 500 gold and I'd just drop it on him. Let's say if I only wanted to gain 25 skill points, I'd only drop 250 gold. In this case, I don't have any gold on me, but in this server, new players start off with this little deed, which is worth 1,000 gold, specifically to be used for training at NPCs. So in this case, I'm going to train my begging using it, and just the same as I would with gold, I just drag it, drop it on him. And since I can't, you know, select how much of this deed I want when I'm dragging and dropping it, here it gives me a little context menu saying how much of these credits do you want to use. So in this case, I'm going to go for the full 500. And as you can see, my skill in begging just went up by 50, which you can actually see reflected on the skill screen. Here it's 50 as well. Let's see, what else? Now let's say this guy was kind of hard to click and kind of annoying area where I can't really click on him to get that menu. I can also actually press Control and Shift at the same time, and suddenly I can see all the mobiles or NPCs and players, as well as any items on the floor, all in a very easy way to see. And you can right click them to get rid of entries if there's like a bunch of things stacked up together. And from here you can double click it to open the Paperdoll, or just single click the name and you get the same context menu. At the same time, let's check out the buy screen real quick. If I was to buy from him, here I would get a menu with all the items he has for sale. In this case, all he has is kindling at a price of 1 gold per, and he has 100 kindling available. If I were to double click it, I now see on the bill of sale I have 1 kindling for 1 gold, and the total price would be 1 gold. And here I can click on this to increase the amount of it I want to buy, and at the same time I can see that the amount here is decreasing as I increase this one. So if I wanted to buy 16 kindling, my total price would be 16. So I just click accept and I would buy it, and it would appear in my inventory. Now another thing about skills is that if I wanted to, let's say for example I want to get a couple of skills from this category, a couple of skills from here, and a few skills from here, instead of having to go through all of these, I can actually just click on new group, and here I can rename it if I want. I'll just call it whatever, and from here I can actually drag skills and drop them here. And now when I click on whatever, I can see all the skills I'm focused on, for example. Another thing you can do here is for these active skills that you're going to be using, you can actually just click and drag them onto somewhere on your screen, and it'll create an icon that you can use. So for example with arms lore, which we were using before, now instead of having to click here, I can just click here or double click there, and it'll give me the skill prompt and I can use it. Let's see what else. So as mentioned, skills go up by practice and repetition. Now this can be pretty tedious to get all the way to 100, just clicking arms lore and clicking my dagger over and over again. So there's something called macros and scripts in this game, which are a pretty huge part of it, which can make repeating a series of tasks or a simple task automated, right? So for example, when I go to eat or sleep or I'm at work or something, I can just have the macro running and it will just be using arms lore on this dagger over and over again, and by the time I come back, hopefully I'll have gained a bunch of skill, maybe even all the way up to 100. I'm not going to go too in depth into macroing, and there's really a lot you can do with it, but I'll try to make another video dedicated just to that. Now let's say for example you're talking to someone, or you spoke to this guy and you didn't see how much it was going to cost you to train, or you missed a message saying if you got a skill gain. Well, you can always come to your journal, which you can find up here at the top. You see journal, or otherwise you can press Alt-J, right? And now here you have a log of all the recent messages that people have said and that have appeared here at the bottom left, known as system messages. Here you can filter it to choose only specific things. You can change it to dark mode to make certain things easier to read, and that's about it. Now, in terms of actually, attacking stuff and getting into the combat and so, let me just run to the dungeon real quick. Normally you would find an enemy, and if you wanted to auto attack them, you would have to enter war mode, right? And to enter war mode, oh, there's an enemy right here. So I see this monk bat and this harpy. That's kind of a lot of enemies here right now. I can click on them and drag to pull out their HP bar. So say for example this harpy right here, I just clicked on him and I dragged him. He's kind of hard to see, he's gray right now, which indicates that he's attacking me and he's basically my target. If I wanted to attack him, I would have to enter war mode, right? I can enter war mode by either clicking on this peace button here, by pressing Alt-C, which for me, for whatever reason, it doesn't work, or if you hold down Tab. And as you can see, the cursor changes to red when you're in war mode, and also your character's stance changes. As you can see, I'm toggling back and forth, and my character's stance is kind of moving around. Now, a really useful option here, I'm just going to highlight real quick, is if you go into Options, Combat Spells, and then hold Tab key for combat. If you get rid of that and click Apply, I can actually just press Tab once and it'll keep me in combat, and I can just press it again to get out of combat mode. Now, for the HP bars, instead of having to, let's say for example here, there was a harpy there, but I couldn't see it because of all the players that were around. Instead of having to click directly on it and drag it, another thing I could do is come into the options, and for example I could show HP bars here, which gives, you know, a percentage over everyone's head, or you can also enable drag select to open health bars. Now when I do that, I can just create a box and it'll bring up the health bars of everything that was within that box. This is highly useful, definitely recommend it. And so now let's get into actually attacking. If I were to enter combat mode and double click on this Mongbat, I'll start attacking. And you see now I'm getting wrestling, tactics, anatomy, and even arms lore, surprisingly. Another option would have been to double click on its name, and that would have started combat as well. In this case, this guy's another player. I can see he's blue, and so if I were to try to attack him, I'll suddenly get a prompt saying, "This may flag you criminal." In this game, there are criminal actions that will actually turn your name from blue to gray. And when you're blue, other players won't be able to attack you without becoming criminals. They won't be able to loot a blue corpse without going criminal. And this doesn't mean that they can't do those things to you. They can loot your blue corpse, they can attack you, but they will go criminal, they will go gray. And other players might attack them because now there will be no consequences of doing so. And when they die, their corpse will be gray as well, which means people will be able to loot it without going criminal. Going criminal only lasts for a couple of minutes. Your name will change from gray back to blue, and it'll be like as if nothing had happened. If you, for example though, if you murder a bunch of players, your name will go red, and you'll be a permanent criminal until you spend a bunch of time basically doing absolutely nothing, until your kill counts decreases below a certain threshold, and you'll go back to being blue. Now, let's say I had killed one of these creatures, which apparently in this dungeon I'm not able to loot even gray corpses, which is surprising. That's kind of annoying. So I'll skip on to the next topic and then come back to this later, because I'm not going to be able to kill anything right now. So let's say I'm taking a bunch of damage, right? Well, I had healing skill, so that means I can use bandages. So I just double click on my bandages, and I can click on my HP bar or myself. And as you can see, it says you begin applying the bandages. In my case, I have this timer over my head, which I'll show how to set that up in another video. But basically, as soon as the timer is done, I will heal some HP back. You see, I just got a bunch of HP back, and this is how you can keep yourself alive, through the healing skill. There are other ways, like using magic with a cure spell, or I guess technically a heal spell. Let's see if I have greater heal, for example. Apparently I don't have enough mana to use it. So now I'm going to die, unfortunately, because I was not able to keep myself healed. So once you find yourself dead, you'll turn into a ghost. you won't really be able to interact with anything. And so you'll either need a player to resurrect you, or you'll need to find a healer. Now, players won't actually be able to see ghosts unless they enter war mode, right? If you don't enter war mode, you're completely invisible to other players. So if you want a chance at being rezzed by someone else, definitely enter war mode. So in this case, I'm lucky enough that there's a healer right next to the dungeon entrance. So I can just come straight up to the healer, and I get this option. Do you wish to resurrect? And so I click accept. Oh, apparently I'm in a doorway, so I can't do it there. So since I failed, I'm going to run out, run back in, and accept. Now I'm alive. Now normally you would spawn at 1 HP, but I'm guessing because this is Shelter Island, it's a bit more forgiving, and I respawn at full HP. And I have this Death Shroud, which will disappear as soon as I drag it off, and now I'm naked. So I can re-equip my clothes, and normally my backpack would be pretty much empty, but as I mentioned before, because my stuff is blessed in Newbied, I'm not dropping any of it. But now we get to see the loot screen, because I've just created my own corpse, which I'll definitely be able to loot, which I can see right here, the remains of random dude 6. So I come up here and I either double click on the name, or I just double click on my corpse, or again I can press CTRL+SHIFT and just double click on my corpse. Now normally I would see, you know, a bunch of items here, which I could again, you know, drag onto myself, drag into my inventory, whatever. But a much more convenient thing that you can do is that you can enter the options and you can enable grid loot, at least for this server, right? And so down here I can see grid loot. Right now it's set to none. So if I change this to grid loot only or both and hit apply, if I open my inventory now, I can actually see this new kind of window where instead of having to click it and drag it, I can just click it once and boom, it's in my inventory. Now, let's say for example I ran out of bandages and I cannot heal anymore. Well, I could go to this healer and I could, you know, come up here, press buy, and just buy a bunch of bandages from him. But another alternative, which is probably going to be the most common one, is if you find a tailor, you can actually buy bolts of cloth from them, which it's a shame there's not one right here, but I wouldn't have gold to buy it anyways. Once you buy bolts of cloth from them, you can actually double click on your scissors, then click on the bolt of cloth, which will turn it into folds of cloth. And then if you double click your scissors again and target the folds of cloth, you'll turn them into bandages. And so that's how you would create more bandages for you to keep healing. Of course, you don't need the bandaging skill to heal. There are other alternatives like using spells. Unfortunately, I just don't have enough mana to actually cast it because I only have 10 intelligence, or I guess 11, which locks me at 11 mana. Let's see what else. So in terms of spells, the same thing applies with skills, which is that you can, you know, double click them here and cast a spell, or you can actually single click it to get a better view and then drag the icon to your screen, and now whenever you want you can just click that icon and cast. As you can see, my spellbook right now is pretty empty. Not everyone needs a spellbook. This is really only for people who plan on having magery as one of their skills. Right now it's pretty empty and I've only got spells up to the 4th circle. So if you were to go to a mage vendor or just explore and kill monsters throughout the game, you can buy or pick up spell scrolls. And in order to get more spells, you just drag those spell scrolls onto your book, and suddenly they will appear under the respective circle. So if I got, I don't know, like clumsy or something, and I added it to the book, suddenly it would appear here and I would be able to cast it. Let's see what else. Another option, instead of having to drag the icon and create it or double click it directly from the book, is that you can actually go into options, macros, and then say you press new macro and you say cure, right? And so here I would put cast spell, cure, and I'll set a hotkey. For example, Control D. If I wanted to, I could put backspace D, Alt D, Shift D, Control or Shift Alt D, whatever. In this case, I'm just going to put it to Control D. I'm going to click the check mark, apply, and now if I press Control D, you can see I'm casting cure. One of the last things to cover. In this game, you can also tame animals. Just a brief mention to this. Say, for example, this Mongbat here, right? If I click on it, I have the options for animal lore and tame. And by taming it, I'll actually make it into my pet and then be able to issue commands like, for example, all follow me. So you literally just type that. Or if, you know, your Mongbat was called Sammy, you'd type Sammy follow me, Sammy come. And other options like Sammy kill, or all guard me, etc, etc. You can find a list of pet commands online, but in order to issue commands to your pets, you're gonna have to actually type them out and press enter. And you know, to keep your pets alive, you can use the same methods as you can on yourself. So you can heal them, except for instead of using the healing skill, you would use veterinary, and you can cast healing spells on them, which would just use major as usual. Lastly, if you decided to go for, you know, maybe a bard, maybe you've got musicianship and discordance or whatever, in order to actually start using those skills like peacemaking, provocation, and discordance, you're gonna have to actually set an instrument as your active one. And you do that just by double-clicking on it. Without having double-clicked it and trying to use the skill for, you know, discordance or something, it would have given me a message saying which instrument shall you use. In which case you could just target the instrument, or again you could just double-click it to set it as your active one. And once you've done that, you can actually use the skills and start training them and using them. Very last thing I'm going to cover is party. If you are playing with a friend or whatever, and you decide you want to party up, in your Paperdoll you can actually click on this little scroll here, double click on it, and then press add new party to member. And then maybe you'll get like a little system message saying so and so has invited you to a party. So you'd come up to here and you'd have the option to join the party. And from here you have options like share experience, which is pretty specific to this shard, or flag green to party. And flagging green means that your name will appear green to them instead of blue, which means that it won't be a criminal action for you to attack them or to loot their body. And that's really useful because if one of you dies and you've got some nice valuables on you, if you're green to each other, you can actually loot those valuables without going criminal in order to prevent other players from looting it. And that way you can safely give it back to them once you see them again. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff to cover, but I'm not sure where to even start. So I hope this is enough for now. This should get you more or less started in the game. And I'll try to make some other videos for macros and for this server in particular. I hope you have a lot of fun, and let me know if there's anything else I could have covered. Thanks.